What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Runick Magical Musketeer deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Jin. And this deck is an absolutely insane deck with just how well Runick and Magical Musketeers work together. This deck is basically hand traps the deck while also trying to mill your opponent out so they have no cards left to draw and you win the duel. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. And definitely give Jen some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Magical Musketeer Caspar. This card is a great 3-of in the deck because it's actually the Searcher. Now, all of your Magical Musketeer monsters share a common effect, that during either player's turn, you can activate Magical Musket spell and trap cards from your hand. And if a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column except during the damage step, then they get a unique effect. Now, Caspar's unique effect is if a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column, you get to add a Magical Musket card from your deck to your hand, but not a card with the same name as the activated card, which is a really good effect to be able to search out all sorts of extremely powerful spells and traps from your deck. I then play 3 copies of Magical Musketeer Starfire. Starfire is a great 3-of in the deck that actually special summons Magical Musketeer monsters from your deck when you activate or when your opponent activates a spell or trap card in this card's column, which is really good to be able to just get an additional monster on the field to make a rank 4 play or even get out your copy of Caspar so you can get another search. I then play 2 copies of Magical Musketeer Kid Brave. Kid Brave is a good card for the deck because it can help you refresh your hand because it has the ability if a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column, you can discard a Magical Musket card and then draw 2 cards, which is really good to be able to discard any of your cards that you don't need to be able to draw into some more Runick cards to stop the opponent. And then play a single copy of Doc. I only feel like you need a single copy of Doc in this particular build. It has the ability if a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column, then you get to add a Magical Musket card from your graveyard back to your hand. Really good effect to be able to get one of your cards back, but I feel like 1 is totally fine. And then play a single copy of Calamity. Calamity is a monster reborn if a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column for any of your Magical Musket monsters, but it does bring them back into defense position, so you can't bring back your Link monster. But it's a really good card because you can put it on your side of the field to overlay with your copy of Starfire to make a rank 4 play, which is really nice. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a lot of spells in this deck. So we're going to start off with 3 copies of Runick Fountain. Runick Fountain is absolutely insane. This card breaks the entire deck and is really good. It has the ability that you can activate Runick quick play spells from your hand during your opponent's turn, basically turning the entire deck into hand traps to deck because your Magical Musketeers already let you activate your Magical Musket cards during either player's turn directly from your hand, and then Runick Fountain lets you activate your basically your Runick quick play spells during your opponent's turn from your hand, which is really good. It's absolutely insane because you're always going to have an answer to the opponent. But this card has the ability also that once per turn, if you activate a Runick quick play spell card, you can target up to 3 Runick quick play spell cards in your graveyard and place them on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then draw the same number of cards, refreshing your hand like a fountain should, which is absolutely insane. It's so good to be able to draw additional cards with this card because you're going to draw even more outs to the opponent and just refresh your hand with all sorts of really good cards. I then play 3 copies of Runick Tip. Runick Tip is really good in the deck because it's actually the Searcher, but all of your Runick spell cards that are quick plays actually share a common effect. They have 2 effects, but one of them is always the same. Now, this particular common effect between all of your Runick quick play spells is that you can special summon a Runick monster from your extra deck to your extra monster zone, which is a great effect to be able to summon out either your Runick Wings or Runick Fangs to the extra monster zone. But this card's unique effect is that you get to add a Runick card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Runick Tip, and then you banish the top card of your opponent's deck, which is a really good effect to get to any of your Runick cards. But your Runick cards also activate and have this particular effect when they activate that you skip your next battle phase after activation, which isn't that big of a deal because you're trying to mill your opponent out, which is really cool. I then play 3 copies of Runick Freezing Curses. Freezing Curses is a really good 3-of that lets you target an effect monster that your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of this turn, and then banish the top 3 cards of your deck, which is really good that you just basically can draw into a negate that you can activate during the opponent's turn to have with your Runick Fountain, turning Runick Fountain essentially into a negate, which is really good. I then play 3 copies of Runick Flashing Fire. This card is absolutely insane. Runick Flashing Fire is so good and a card you always want to see because it lets you target a special summon monster that your opponent controls and just destroy it. And then you manage the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, which is absolutely crazy that you can just disrupt the opponent by popping one of their special summon monsters. I then play 2 copies of Runick Destruction. Runick Destruction is the MST of the deck because it lets you target a spell trap card that your opponent controls and then destroy it, and then you banish the top 4 cards from your opponent's deck, which is really high impact to be able to banish 4 cards off the top of your opponent's deck, basically being able to get rid of your opponent's outs to this deck, which is really insane. I then play 2 copies of Runick Slumber. Runick Slumber is a really good 2-of. You can play this card as a 3-of, but I really like this card as a 2-of in the deck. It has the ability that you get to target a face-up monster on the field, and the next time that monster would be destroyed by battle or by card effect this turn, it is not destroyed. Also, it cannot attack this turn. Then, after applying this effect, you banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, which is a pretty good effect to be able to just get additional cards banished from the opponent, but you can always use this card to be able to special summon a Runick monster from your extra deck, like all of your other quick play spells, which is really good. I then play my personal favorite of all of the Runick quick play spells. This card is so high impact and so good in this deck that I almost played it as a 3-of because I like this card so much, and that's going to be 2 copies of Runick Smiting Storm. I absolutely love the artwork of this card. I really wish it would have been a super rare in the set, but it is just a rare, but it's so good because this card can end a game, which is really cool, especially if you get rid of combo pieces, because it has the ability that you banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck up to the number of cards they control. If they control 10 cards on their side of the field, you banish the top 10 cards off their deck. With their starting hand of 5 cards, you're already going to be 15 cards into that deck before you even really get into the game, which is absolutely crazy. Plus the cards they already have on the field, which is just so good. This card is so good. I almost played it as a 3-of in the deck, and you can play this card as a 3-of if you guys want to, but it's really insane, especially if you hit at the right spot with this card. And then play a sealed copy of Runick Dispelling. Runick Dispelling is really good because if your opponent adds cards from their deck to their hand, except during the damage step, or except during the draw phase, discard a random card from their hand and then banish the top 2 cards of your deck, which is super good to be able to just get an additional 2 cards off the top of the deck and turning their +1 into a break even no effect, which is really good because you're going to get rid of a card from their hand. I then play 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. Dark Ruler No More is really good, especially with all the sprite decks and tier limit running around. Being able to turn off all their monster effects is really good, and we're already not inflicting damage to the opponent because we're not attacking with this deck. We're just reacting to the opponent over and over again until we mill out all their cards. I then play 2 copies of Link into the Brains. This card is so good in Magical Musketeer. It's so powerful in this deck, and it's just absolutely crazy because we just got this card out of the Mega Tin, and it has the ability to get to special summon a monster from your hand, but negate its effects. And then, immediately this card resolves, you get to Link summon a Link monster using monsters that you control as a material, including that monster that you just special summon. And this Link summon cannot be negated, and also your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a monster is Link summoned this way. And if a Link monster you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card to add a monster from your back to your hand from your graveyard with the same original type as one of those destroyed monsters, and you can only activate one of this card per turn, which is why we play this card as a 2-of. But this card is so good in the deck because with this one card you can basically use it with your copy of Magical Musketeer Max, which is really good to be able to use it with Magical Musketeer Max because it makes it so that your opponent cannot even respond to Magical Musketeer Max, letting you either special summon and swarm the field with all sorts of Magical Musketeers, or search out a bunch of magical musketeer spell or traps to be able to use them to react against the opponent, which is so good in this deck. This card is really, really good, and I'm glad we finally have it in the TCG. And then play 2 copies of Magical Musket Cross Dom. Cross Dom is a 2 of, is totally fine in the deck. I don't feel like you need any more than 2 copies of this card, because if you control a Magical Musket monster, you get to target a face-up monster on the field, and until the end phase of its turn, its attack and defense is changed to 0, and it has its effects negated, which is pretty good. But with cards like your Freezing Curses and Flashing Fire, I feel like 2 copies is totally fine. Plus, this card is searchable in the deck with Cast Bar, so I feel like 2 is fine. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just playing a couple of traps in the deck. We're going to be playing 2 copies of Desperado. Desperado is really good in the deck because it has the ability to control a magical musket monster. You can target a face-up card on the field and destroy it, which is really nice. I feel like the same thing with Cross Dom. It is searchable, which is why I just play this card as a 2-of. I then play a single copy of Needle Dancing. Needle Dancing is really good to get cards out of your opponent's graveyard because it has the ability to banish up to 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard, which is really good to be able to get certain cards out of there that they might need, or use this card to react to, say, an Albion that your opponent might have. I then play a single copy of Last Stand. Last Stand is absolutely insane in the deck to be able to stop your opponent from, say, MSTing, Twin Twistering, or even Lightning Storming your copy of Fountain. This card is really good to protect your board, which is why I play it as a 1-of. And it's a counter trap, so it's Speed Spell 3, so your opponent usually cannot react to this card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of the Runick Wing. Runick Wing is a really good 2-of in this deck because this card can actually search out your field spell, which is so good, which is why you play this card as a 2-of. But it has the ability, if this card is special from the extra deck, you can discard a card to add a Runick field spell from your deck to your hand. And if another card you control would be destroyed by card effect, then you can banish this card that you control instead. And if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you return it back to the extra deck so you can use it again, which is really nice. And then play a single copy of the Runick Fang. Runick Fang is a really good card in the deck because it cannot be destroyed by card effects, and if this card is special summoned from the extra deck, then you can target a non-quick play spell Runick spell card in the graveyard and add it back to your hand. And when this card is destroyed by battle, then you can target a card on the field and destroy it, which is a really good effect because then you can just pop the card that destroyed it by battle or pop the next monster that might attack you directly. I then play a single copy of number 41 because it's a really good rank 4 to make to be able to stop the opponent in their tracks while you're trying to mill them out, because it's basically a skill drain, which is really nice. You play a single copy of Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is just really good overall in the deck to be able to lock down graveyards, so this card is a definite 1-of in the deck, especially with how easy it is to make rank 4s. And then playing a bunch of different link monsters that are toolbox. You don't have to play any of these, but they're really, really good overall to help you make boards to be able to pop cards on your opponent's field or go in for game just in case you need to attack. I then play a single copy of Access Code. Access Code is really good in the deck. You can play Boral Sword if you want to. It is an option for you guys. You're just basically wanting a piece that you can OTK the opponent with in case you need to, but this card helps out because if you can't attack because of your Runick quick play spells, you can pop cards on the field, which is why I like this card over Boral Sword. I then play a single copy of Appaloosa because it is easy to make this card with multiple materials and then have this card as an additional negate on the field, which is absolutely insane. 1 copy of Unicorn because it can spin stuff on the field. 1 copy of Phoenix because it can pop spells and traps. 1 copy of our Light Charmer because it can bring back light monsters from the opponent's graveyard. IP Masquerena because you can make Unicorn during the opponent's turn. Security Dragon because it can bounce cards, which is really nice. Gravity Controller because you can link away any of your monsters that are in the extra monster zone that are fusions to be able to make this card to have an additional bounce. And then 2 copies of Magical Musketeer Max. I feel like 2 copies of Max is totally fine. You're never going to resolve this card 3 times. It's really insane when you resolve it just once, but this card is absolutely nuts because if this card is link summoned, you can activate one of these 2 effects to add magical musket spells or traps with different names from your deck to your hand up to the number of monsters that your opponent controls, or special summon Magical Musketeer monsters with different names from your deck up to the number of spell and trap cards that your opponent controls, and you can only use one of these effects per turn, and during either player's turn you can activate Magical Musket spells or traps from your hand just like all of your other Magical Musket monsters. But summoning out this card with Link into the Brains is absolutely crazy because if your opponent cannot respond, you can go like +3, +4 with this card, which is really, really good. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really awesome deck. I'm really glad that Jin actually suggests this because Magical Musketeers are one of my favorite decks of all time. I absolutely love playing with Magical Musketeer, which was like really exciting when I saw that Runick's work with this deck and just how powerful they actually work with Runick. Like, it's really insane. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come for our notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.